Okay, so while we ignore the Vancouver Canucks and the reports coming out saying that they are trying to make a trade because, who would have thunk it, they're over the cap. Let's talk today about the prospects. We'd already kicked off a prospects conversation yesterday because we made the Jonathan Lekaramaki video going over his Cerebro stint in the SHL so far, how in the regular season and the preseason he has been scoring a ton of goals, which is good to see. But we also did allude to the fact that the Penticton Young Stars tournament between the Canucks, the Jets, the Flames, and the Oilers was going on too. Every team played each other once, and that was it. You didn't see anything else other than that, and I had a difficult time actually tracking down box scores and everything like that too. I couldn't actually find it. So if anybody has like a website that has all the information from each of the games listed out, then hey, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. That will be very useful for future reference. But what I wanted to do in this video was just kind of go over some of the conversations that have arisen based off of these games. The Canucks played the Flames, they played the Oilers, they played the Jets. They won some, they lost one in the shootout, but at the end of the day, this prospect showcase was just that, a showcase. This is an opportunity for Canucks fans to have watched their prospects live on YouTube for no charge whatsoever, and just kind of see what some of these guys are about. Now, I've compiled a list of a few names that I thought were intriguing to talk about, guys that I thought stood out from the highlights that I watched, from the live games that I watched. You might have actually caught me in the chat for one of the games. I didn't comment live on a lot of them. I just kind of lurked and only said a few things here and there. So if you were in the chat saying hi to me, hey, what's up? It was nice to see y'all in the chat, just having a blast watching Canucks hockey. But, of course, because these VODs are available on YouTube, you could just go out there and rewatch the entire games at your own leisure. I'm pretty sure they're still up at the time of recording this audio. But when it comes to the few Vancouver Canucks guys that I thought stood out the most, the first one we need to talk about is Aiden McDonough. This guy. Oh my goodness, this guy is NHL ready. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. Initially an overage draftee back in 2019's 7th round, Aiden McDonough was eventually a Northeastern University Husky, and he was a pretty good one at that, scoring goals, getting points, and eventually getting a Canucks cup of coffee at the end of 22-23. He had a goal in 6 games played, which is not amazing, but it's still okay for a guy who, at the time of recording this audio, is 23, turning 24 years old. But in the prospect showcase against younger guys, McDonough showed his age, and he showed that he is definitely ready to compete for an NHL spot this upcoming season. He scored so many goals, he scored in the shootout, his release is NHL ready. The way he's able to stutter step by defenders, how he's able to drag and shoot on the rush, how he's able to calmly come in and just pinpoint where he wants to put the puck in the back of the net. Aiden McDonough was incredible. I'm not going to go out there and say he's got like 20 goal potential next year, but when it comes to pure goal-scoring instincts and execution, McDonough's 23 compared to a lot of these younger guys at the tournament, and it showed. He was definitely above and beyond this competition, and you could say he maybe was even a little bit too good for this tournament as a whole. Either way, though, it's good to see Aiden McDonough showcase good things rather than not. If he had been unproductive, then that would have been a huge red flag, and we all would have been way more concerned than hyped. But aside from Aiden McDonough, he wasn't the only guy that I thought stood out really well for the Vancouver Canucks, and a guy who also happened to be NCAA caliber. He had Akito Hirose, 24 years old, the recently signed Canucks defender from the end of 23, who played another cup of coffee with the Canucks. He had 7 games played to end off 22-23, 3 assists in the process. He also played in this tournament, and he was a standout defender. Just such a calm presence on the Canucks blue line. He had 5 points throughout the entire tournament, 4 assists and a goal, and just the way that Hirose was able to move around, you could tell that this was one of the more polished hockey minds on the blue line. And in fact, that was a pattern that I remember watching Hirose execute with the main Vancouver Canucks at the end of last season. There's something about how smooth he is and how calm he is, plus just the quality of the decisions he makes when he's bringing the puck out or when he's controlling the blue line in the offensive zone. Akito Hirose was a guy that stood out to me last season as one of the more competently thinking defenders on this team. He just knows what to do. Not saying that he's going to be this superstar amazing guy, but as a final option for the Vancouver Canucks top 6 next year, this could very well be the player that I feel is the most suited for that third pairing role. You know, the Troy Stetchers of the world, the Ben Huttons, the guys that were signed out of college or drafted later that eventually showed off good NHL value after developing as top defensemen on their NCAA teams. Yeah, I feel like Akito Hirose could be one of these guys. He also had Cole McWard on the blue line, who scored a few goals. He did some things. It was nice to see McWard getting involved in the offense. And not to mention Hunter Brzustewicz, also on the Vancouver Canucks blue line. This guy was not NCAA talent. He was from the OHL and a little bit younger, too. So Hunter Brzustewicz had himself a little bit more to prove than a lot of these guys, and for the most part, you sort of saw the dynamic where Hunter Brzustewicz didn't need to be the top offensive dog on this blue line in order for the Canucks to have results, because you had the NCAA guys and Philip Johansson from Sweden carrying significant weight too, which allowed Brzustewicz to just kind of play his game and just be all right, do offensive things and drive to the net and circle out in front. He drew a penalty in, I believe it was the Winnipeg game, where he was circling around the offensive zone, cut back out in front, and got hooked a little bit. So these are some of the offensive instincts that made Brzustewicz a very valuable player to be drafted by Vancouver. Of course, he'll likely go back to the OHL for 23-24. I'm not really expecting huge things out of Brzustewicz in terms of Vancouver for the upcoming season. But for right now, as an 18-year-old defender, he was already pretty good in the OHL for points, so this is going to be a pretty good stepping stone next season. As for other guys whom we've come to familiarize ourselves with Abbotsford, you had Arshdeep Bains as well as Danila Klimovich play pretty okay. I'd say that Bains looked a little bit better, a little bit more mature, and a little bit more adjusted to a game that was more suited to the NHL style. Bains just had this work ethic, he had this drive and this grit in front of the net, he was able to pot in some goals, and when he was battling it out in scrums, he was always there, always present, and making himself known. Again, this is not a player who is going to come into the NHL and become a 100-point guy anytime soon, but as the best player in the WHL a few seasons ago, and a guy who had worked up to this point from very humble beginnings, there's a really good story here with Arshdeep Bains, plus the fact that he was just so competent and so capable throughout this tournament. You know how Akito Hirose had just a smart mind that was able to do everything correctly? I feel like Bains had that too. Add on his mobility and how he was able to just kind of breeze by guys, and you have a profile of a guy that could very well earn himself a call-up once in a while to the main Vancouver Canucks in 23-24. The Canucks have quite a few forwards, so it's going to take a few injuries for guys like Bains or guys like McDonough to get full-time spots, but Bains is right in there. I feel like he showed off really well in this tournament, and I think a lot of Canucks fans who are from the area, from Surrey, are going to cheer for this guy too. Not to mention the other Abbotsford story that we've all been paying attention to. You had yourselves Danila Klimovich, who made himself a pretty interesting impact in this tournament. I don't want to say that he was amazing, like he was good, definitely had the skills on display, which is part of what made him such an intriguing prospect when he was initially drafted, but there were some moments throughout these games where Klimovich was a little bit too far forward, where he had to reach back to get passes, where he kind of fumbled the puck a little bit in the offensive zone, especially in the power play in that Winnipeg game. I definitely don't want to say I was disappointed with Klimovich, but this is a guy who is so raw and still so new in the North American game that there's a lot of time for him to develop and become better. For Klimovich alongside of Bains and even Raty, who had a pretty okay showcase this tourney as well. He actually got hit a little bit hard in one of the final games and had to take a little bit of time off. It was kind of scary to see. But for each of these three guys, Bains, Raty, Klimovich, there's a lot more to be gained in the AHL. This tournament was signaling that they're all kind of progressing in the proper ways, which is really good to see because you're not used to seeing the Canucks actually do very well in these tournaments. They absolutely stomped Calgary in their first game and then beat out the Oilers pretty convincingly too. It was only really the Jets where they kind of choked that lead away and then lost in the shootout where things didn't really go all too well. But aside from that, the Canucks had some pretty standout prospects, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below how you felt about these guys as well. Hirose, McDonough, those guys stood out to me. I liked Bains. I liked the skill from Cole McWard, Brzustewicz. I thought we could have seen a bit more out of Danila Klimovich. I thought Raty was okay. What do you think this means for the Canucks heading forward? Who do you think amongst these guys could actually make the team? If there are any players you feel were good enough to do that. But I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And Bye.